Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to the stream, those that are new. So, quick overview of what we're working on. My husband and I started a game engine in C++. Actually, hold on, I'm going to wait 1 second. I configured this to start at 8:30, and I wasn't sure if it actually started at 8 until it was 8:30, but it's 8:30 now. So anyway, my husband and I built a game engine by hand in C++ years and years ago, and we've been tinkering around with it ever since and adding features. And we are now trying to use it to make our first commercial project. And a little bit more about us. So I use LLMs at work and they are super cool, but we don't use LLMs here. So if you want to just see how things are done the old fashioned way, that's what we like to do. And a little bit about the project. So I have a tremendous amount of nostalgia for my childhood and for the 90s. And I'm trying to take the nostalgia that I feel for 90s CRPGs and compress a dungeon crawler experience into a 30-minute multiplayer deck builder with dragons. Doesn't actually have dragons yet, although it might. So today, and probably for the next couple of streams, I will be working on and have been working on the HUD for the primary scene. So I'll show you how it's going to look eventually, not during these streams, but and I've said this before on other streams, but it's going to look like this. The only art here is that I have done is the viewport here, and then also the little guy right here. Everything else, this was just liberally stolen from Pinterest and Google for the point of making a high fidelity mockup so that I know what visually what I'm aiming for and also where all of the elements are going to be in the game. So what I'm working on today will not look anything like this, but the goal for this week is to get all of these elements into the UI and then wire it up to what my husband has been working on in his streams, which is the backend. So, oh, hi Yaniv. You're new here. What do you recommend for me to start learning to program? What would you do today with everything that's available today? That's a really broad question. Welcome to the channel. It really depends on what you want to do. So if you're watching the stream because you're a game dev, even that's a very broad category. But if you want to learn how to program, you can make great use of LLMs, but you have to do it very carefully. Don't let them write any code for you, but I think that using LLMs. Hi, Alex Hicks. Are you Hicksy? I'm gonna make the leap and say that you are. If you're not, hi, Alex Hicks. But Yaniv, it really depends on what you want to do, long story short. But my take on LLMs for learning is use it like a Stack Overflow that isn't mean. And if you have questions on your learning journey, ask an LLM, or do it the old fashioned way and read the docs and go to Stack Overflow. But if you let me know what you're aiming towards or what your goals are, that'd be more helpful because there's all sorts of different kinds of programming to learn in the world. All right, so if you guys remember at the end of last stream, I had the world's most mysterious bug where I hadn't changed anything. Oh, why are we crashing right now? Oh, yeah. Okay, hold on a minute. Okay, we're not going to be building until I fix this bug, but anyway, I was crashing for the most mysterious reason. Oh, hi, Hixie. I would love to see a link to your GitHub if you put it in Discord if it's open source. End of last stream, I was crashing for literally no reason. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life. I hadn't changed a line of code, and I went to run, and it just would crash immediately. It wouldn't even launch the application. And I went through a million hoops. I started to go through them during the stream, and then got frustrated and ended the stream, and then did work on it a little bit more that night, and then yesterday. Oh my gosh, you will never imagine what the bug is. So we are working with the Steam backend here, the Steam API, Steamworks API, and thus we have to do a bunch of crazy stuff We have an app ID now. We've registered our game with Steam, even though it's very premature, but we're still using the Steam developer app, which is called Spacebore. And when I launched the game, we pass an argument run as server because we have the local host and host the game server. And this window pops up. And so I was in this state where I hadn't clicked continue, which would then launch the game. I had just had that pop up. I didn't realize I had it. So then every time I tried to start the game, it would crash because Steam wasn't responding, and that was the bug. So that was an easy one to fix, but a ridiculous one to find. All right, let me catch up on messages here. Yeah, so if you're learning, I think that any kind of like ChatGPT or anything can be a really great resource for learning. Just don't, if you're going to copy and paste what it gives you, then you really won't learn very much at all. But I've been giving this advice in the comments, but I would say figure out what you want to do and then narrow it down to like the simplest possible version of like the simplest tutorial you could ever do. So say you want to be able to make games and you've chosen C++, that's already narrowing the field of programming quite a lot. And then before you try to make it like anything with a GUI in C++, the first thing I would recommend is like you start with Hello World, and there are countless tutorials on how to do that, because even that is a big leap because you have to figure out what compiler am I going to use. Am I on Windows? Am I on Linux? MSVC or GCC, what have you. What IDE am I going to use? VS Code, which is what I would recommend just because it's lightweight and pretty beginner friendly, and you can get whatever extensions you want. And then I would so once you get Hello World, then you're smooth sailing for that's a great accomplishment. Then I would try to move on to a console game like Guess the Number, or Is It Even or Is It Odd, something that has user input back and forth, and just do like sufficiently slightly more challenging console apps until you understand enough about like conditionals and program control flow and that. And then once you get there, I would move on to starting just the simplest UI imaginable. And I'm horrible with remembering who tells me what, you guys, as you're going to find out, but somebody a couple streams ago was recommending SFML. Let me share that here quick, which I was looking at. And if you are going to make a GUI and you do choose C++, this seems like the way to go for beginners, at least for sure. It seems to have a renderer, which lets you draw to the screen, and texture support, and fonts, and music, and windows, and user input. So this seems like the library to go once you're ready for GUIs. All right. So we're working on the HUD today, and I'll show you where I'm at right now. Okay, so we have, I don't remember how much of this I had at the end of last stream, but we have our viewport, and we can cast a spell that doesn't have effects at the moment. And then here is going to be the party menu that shows the other players. This is their health. This is their level of victory points, aka how many enemies have they defeated out of their array of 10 enemies. And this is going to be a little eye icon, so I almost don't want to say this out loud, but the thing that got me onto wanting to make a retro CRPG style game was literally playing the Sierra games like King's Quest, and you would have an eye that you could click, and then it would turn your cursor into an eye, and then you could click it to investigate things on the screen. That gives me this like whole body sensation of nostalgia. And so I knew that whatever this project ended up being, it must have an eye icon somewhere in it. So when you click the eye icon, it doesn't do anything right now, but what it will do is it'll change your POV to whatever player that you've chosen. So you'll see what enemies they're fighting. You will see what their equipments are, what their stats are. You'll have some limited view into their deck. And so these buttons are wired up. The logs will go here. That'll be in a different stream and as part of a different body of work than what I'm working on here, because we need a separate manager for logs. And this will be the array where your runestones are played, and some vocabulary for the stream. I go back and forth between calling them cards and calling them runestones, but they are going to be runestones. And they are meant to embody, this will be a limited view into your own fate, and the runestones will show you what you are going to do, and you can't reorder them, and you must play them in the order that they're played. So what I'm working on tonight is I'm going to get the buttons. If we look at my mock-up here, I have to get the runestones button. This will show you your library of cards that you currently have access to, the ones that you are in your deck. This will show you your equipment and your inventory menu. This will be the level up menu. And then this will be settings. And then here's your player loadout where you can see what items you have equipped. Here's your stats. I'm hoping to get done with all of this tonight. Getting all these wired up to actual game stats and such. I won't actually do the inventory and the level up menu and the runestones menu, but I will just have them, when you click them, open up empty windows. Polly Josu, your positivity is very catching. I love your positivity. You're a very encouraging person. Most real Tutu says, I like the OOUUI namespace. Try to spell it out loud. I have not yet pronounced it phonetically in my mind. I literally say OOUUI in my head, but it would be very ooey. Yeah, Steamworks is very exciting. So Yanni was wondering, what frameworks and libraries am I using for the game UI? I am stretching ImGUI. Yep, Dear ImGUI, exactly, yep. I'm stretching Dear ImGUI to its absolute mortal limit. Because you can have images in ImGUI, and you can have animations in ImGUI if you make them. And you can have buttons and windows. And so I need and font scaling, so I need nothing else. Dear ImGUI is meant to be like a debug library for, it feels like its special purpose in the world is to be a debug library for people writing game engines, and that's how we came across it. But if you had any doubts, it was ImGUI. You will have no more doubts now. But yeah, we are going to use ImGUI for our production UI because we don't want to take the time or pull in an additional library, and it does everything we need it to. And I kind of recommend it now that I've gotten into the ImGUI vibe. ImGUI's fine, and it's actually pretty simple to work with. One thing that will be interesting is, will it remain performant as we add more UI elements? That remains to be seen. All right, so what I'm going to be working on next today is getting the icons fired up. What are you telling me? Oh, yeah. So this is telling me, hey, Dumbo, you called your own function in your own function. This is not going to work. Oh, no, but I need to grab. So I just made a helper function because this is my image cache library, and it's reasonably complicated to fetch my images, my assets that I've loaded into texture RAM into an ImGUI texture. So I made an engine method to do that. But if you look at what the code was before, it is fairly verbose. So I just made a real simple helper method here, or I was in the process of making one. Oh, and then we need graphics, of course. We do. In the process of just extracting this functionality so that all I have to do is provide the asset textures ID. So graphics. Recursive calls, that's great. And then hi Monty, welcome back. Why did I choose to build my own game engine and not work with Unity or Unreal? That's a really good question. So I need a comma there. So we didn't actually choose to, there was very few points where we actually said, I don't like Unreal, I don't like Unity, I'm gonna make my own game engine. My husband started doing it for fun in like 2019, and then it seemed kind of interesting, so then I started working on the renderer, and I dove right into Vulkan and with no graphics programming knowledge, and that was very informative, but probably not the fastest route. And then we just kept working on it and found it was really fun to, like, the term in the industry that is kind of well, I don't know about it. It's very as LinkedIn energy, but it's eating your own dog food, which means that like you use the tool that you make to be your own first critic on it and see, does it work, does it not work? We weren't there for a very long time because the engine was in active stages of development. And then one day we realized, like, we have everything we could need to make a game. And just started making one for the Pirate Software Game Jam in 2024. And then we realized, oh, we can actually make a game with our game engine. And then we have had moments where we don't have some feature that we need that would be really heinous to add. So then we abandon the game engine and go pull in Unreal or pull in Unity. But the thing about it is that I know exactly how to use the engine. And if I need a feature, I don't have to submit a bug report and hope for votes on it. I can just go fix it. And yeah, maybe it takes longer, but even in the writing of it, I figure out more than I would have ever known if I'm just waiting for an update from Unity or Unreal. And now it's just a point of pride. It's really cool to make your own engine. So that's where we're at now. And for the most part, it works. It has an ND component system. We do RT audio for Windows audio. Then we have my husband had written his own physics system, which was an incredible thing to say, his own 3D physics system. But we wanted to, for a past project we were working on, we wanted to do wheel physics, and that was just too much. So then we pulled in Jolt Physics, which was the physics engine for Horizon Zero Dawn, and it's free and open source. I highly recommend it. That's working really well. So now we need to pass graphics in, which is kind of a bummer. I wish, I wouldn't have to pass. Sorry, this is I'm really gonna try here to code, but it's just really fun. It's much more fun than I thought it would be to chat with people. So what I'm doing at this exact moment is I made this anonymous namespace, or I had one right here, anonymous namespace to my little helper function, which is just private to the CPP. But I don't want to pass NC graphics in to every call, so I'm going to instead make this a member function, and then I won't have to. So, because I already have a pointer to NC graphics here. We can get rid of our anonymous namespace here. Go down here. Graphics, we don't need you anymore. And then this goes back to NC graphics. That's nice. Then all we have to do if we want to use this thing is just pass the texture. Okay, so right before the stream started, I'd created just real simple buttons for each of my placeholder buttons for each of my menu items here, and then I imported them into the game. So let's build and then plug them into the actual UI. Starman, welcome to the stream. Oh, okay. I also have a soft spot for first-person dungeon crawlers, and I'm very curious if you can explain in one sentence what it is you love about them, because I'm trying to extract exactly what the kernel is that is a dungeon crawler, because I haven't even played that many dungeon crawlers. I've played now Wizardry, and it was horrible. It was very frustrating and brutal, but and then Ultima Underworld, which I'm playing right now, and I actually do like that one, but growing up, like, my closest link to CRPGs was definitely the King's Quest series, and I loved the hell out of the King's Quest series. but there's something that is so nostalgic to me about dungeon crawlers that I want to throw up when I think about it, which is why I'm on this project. I miss it so bad, but I can't yet explain what it is. And so if someone else feels like an extreme nostalgia for 90s gaming and can sum up concisely why they do or what it is about it that makes them feel that way, that would be invaluable to me. Because I feel it, but until I can get someone else to feel it, then this game project will be a flop. And I'm confident that I can, and that's what I'm working on outside of coding right now, is figuring out exactly what that is so I can make other people feel that way too. And Matthew Sparks says, so y'all have got your own ECS-based engine that uses Jolt for physics. It's super cool and quite impressive. Thank you so much. Hi, Gabriel. Welcome to the stream. I'm a beginner game dev. Some advice to structure and scale a project. Still finding a path into this. Maybe a book or something. I'm gonna just start. I'm gonna get this once I figure out how to add images to my stream, because I have now brought this up every stream. This is the book. Well, it's actually maybe not the book for your question. This is not. Never mind. This is not the book. This is not the book for your question. This is just my special interest book. Anyone that is into rendering, get real-time rendering, 4th edition. It's super expensive. Maybe you can rent it from the library, but it is the best graphics programming book on the planet, in my opinion. But to structure and scale a project, I don't know. And to be honest, that is the hardest part for me. And so if that is a good question to ask my husband, because he is much better at architecting large-scale projects than I am. I find that I can't hold the whole architecture in my mind at once, and so I end up getting a good chunk of it in brain RAM and then pushing forward in a direction, and then usually I back myself into some corner or other, and then I have to massage my way into plugging in on a project this size at least. But he seems to really have a knack for it. So Spoojwa says, do you have any suggestions where to find the best way to... Oh. Best way to structure... It's kind of the same question as Gabriel had. Best way to structure your game engine to make it as proper as possible. Oh, I can answer that. Screw proper. There is no such thing as proper anymore. I think that here's my explanation on what makes good code. Do you have tests written for your code? Do those tests pass? Are they good tests? And do they cover what you need them to cover? And if all those things are true, you have good code. And I would not waste a second of time wondering about what's proper. So Starman says, I suspect it's the way they combine interesting environment framing, discretized game systems, and 3D, so for them over top-down roguelikes. Yeah. There's absolutely something about the environment. I know what you mean about discretized game systems, and I'm very much trying to encapsulate that as well. Just things are very concise in dungeon crawlers, and like the old, just old computer games. I feel like it was just much more clear and concise and complicated, and there was so much more time invested into the systems, and it was more about the experience than the appearance, and that was cool. I've never played Tunnels of Doom. All right, a couple more questions, and I'm gonna get back to it. I was so happy when Cakes had phenomenal success. Cakes was my spirit animal because people always tease him about like, oh, skill issue, and he's like, fuck you. And he embodies I don't care what people think, how people judge my code. My code is good if it does what I need it to be. You guys can go fuck off. And like that, he was so committed to the path he was on that he did not let anybody sway him, and he had phenomenal success over it. And that was just very, very encouraging, because you see like the Casey Muratori's of the world, and it's like, how am I supposed to be as good as that guy? And it can be really intimidating, but I've recently taken the stance that if your code does what you need it to do, then it's good code. Hi, Gadgets! Welcome. Husband working with an ECS as opposed to a more OP-centric way of managing entities. I think it took a bit for me. So my husband wrote the ECS, and my initial. So let me see if I can. I haven't pulled in his PR yet, but let me show you like the sample scene. This will be my last question for now. But it's really cool. I didn't know that I could just start streaming and then find a whole bunch of people that have similar interests all at once that I get to talk to every day. So this is our engine, and if I show you let's do graphics test scene. It took a bit of getting used to for me because I'm used to like okay, so I want an ogre, so ogre dot what's my animation gonna be? It's gonna be this, and like more OOP, and then but instead let's like, okay, well I have a world, which is our ECS, and I'm going to place an ogre mesh, and then I'm going to link it back to the entity ID of the ogre, which is just an empty game object. And that took some wrapping my head around for sure. But nowadays it's the separation of all the systems that Cal, my husband, wrote makes game development much easier, and it makes life a lot easier. All right. So were we building? We were. So now we can get to the game UI. And I want to get into the draw player. We have our man. Okay, so am I loading the runes? Let's check that. I didn't think I was yet. Oh, yes, I am. Okay. We've got our runes button, and then let's just go and hammer in all the other buttons here. Next let's go to our mockup. Next is equipment. And then next is level up. So all I'm doing here is creating an image button, and then it says, well, what's the reference to the texture? So I'm just calling my image cache where we were before, and I'm getting that very same button here. Okay, level up button. And last we need settings. Then that'll be in one group, and then we want, or if I can abuse the groups in same line to get this to do what I want. I want to see that the man is off to the right of all the buttons, and I expect that this will accomplish that. Recently stumbled onto the imgui group functionality, which just lets you group objects into be considered as a single element, and it is, look at that. It is changing my life. I don't have to do any more tables and any more columns. Bourgeois is correct. Nice. I think I'm horribly clobbering everybody's names, but doing my best. My husband and I are working on the same project, so a little bit about the stream. He's been working on the backend systems, and then he does that usually at like 2 in the morning. He'll probably stream this morning. And then I've been doing the front end integration in his backend system. So you can see here, this is the game server sending us networked commands in the background. And so if you see here, we connected to the game, we started the game, we updated the game to class selection, which changed into that menu. Then we each of us selected a class, including the bots. Then we jump into the player turn start phase, which then transitions into this scene. And then what I haven't implemented yet, but I need the UI to be in place first, is what he did here, which is you get a chance to change the opportunity to change your equipment when your turn starts. So you get prompted here. Right now it's just auto selecting whatever you currently had equipped. And so that's what he just did. And then actually what I haven't even merged yet, which I should probably do, is actually I'm going to do that now because that would be really cool to see. He just merged enemy spawning. So let me commit. Buttons for player. I don't expect the merge requests or the conflicts to be too bad here. Working in pretty distinct areas at the moment. But I think it'll be cool for people to see like a handoff, because now the game will be written twice as fast. I know MGUI is everywhere. It's because it's so easy to work. It's so easy to get started on. My 2 cents. Right, so we're gonna pull his changes in. Oh yeah, he added some items to the manifest. So this is our asset manifest. And one of these days I'll do a whole stream on how those work. And we want both changes. Got a little bit clobbered here, that's okay. But asset importing is one of the things we have really smooth, so I'm excited to show it to you one day. Any more merge conflicts? No. Generated assets, I will just take either and then regenerate. Say, yeah, that's fine. Stage with merge conflicts, and then, all right, so this is our combat scene. I'm manager now. Okay, so we want game UI manager, we want changes, but they don't exist anymore. They don't exist anymore, actually. So now we're going to regenerate the. My husband wrote this, and it is the nicest feature in the planet. So we can take our manifest and then auto-gen the C. You can auto-gen C++ for it. Install and that just generated this assets file. Oh, okay. I'm just going to clear. Oh, geez. Okay. Could have just resolved the changes the old-fashioned way, but now that ship has sailed. Stage, and then just generate them again. See where we left after that, because now you should see some skellies. See you, gadgets. So this repository, Gabriel, is private, but then it's working off of our engine, and it's open source. Anyone's welcome to play with it, but I expect that it will only be useful for us because we've made it so customizable or customized to what we are working on. For example, there's only one material that you can choose, and it's this Uber material that makes really neat toon shaded stuff. But if that's not what you're going for, you would have a hard time retrofitting it to something else. This will be a long build, so now I do have some time to talk. So what my husband worked on, which is what I'm pulling in now, is enemy spawning. So on player turn start, we spawn the enemies for the player in that current wave if there aren't already spawned, and we'll actually get to see some enemies. What are you called then? Ceased waves, yeah. Okay. Hoping to get functional prototype done by hopefully by the end of this year, maybe a little sooner. And then as we get that in, I'll start working on production assets, and that's what I'm really excited for. Did you guys hear that dog bark? Because I downloaded the NVIDIA audio. What is it called? NVIDIA audio? NVIDIA broadcast. I'm hoping it's helping with noise removal, but tell me if you can hear him barking. Hear him yapping. Assistance manager take now. We also need the data dictionary. I can't wait. We have the data dictionary now. Data dictionary is our the object model for all of our, I'm using the term database tables lightly because they're Excel spreadsheets right now, but and where are you? You're in. But you can query the data dictionary and ask it to tell you about a specific description for any object, like what is the name or status effects or etc. for a given card or enemy. Where did I put you? Dictionary. You can hear the doggo? Damn. My noise cancellation game. All right, so if all goes well with the merge, we should see some skellies here now. Haha. We take our point light and send it out a little bit. It's the wrong direction, send it in Z. Look at them. So we are now spawning enemies. Right. When I first met my husband, were we already both building games and code stuff? No, I just got extremely lucky that we met summer after high school, but I'm hearing a Katy Perry song now in my mind. We met summer after high school, and then we've been together ever since. And I've wanted to do game dev related stuff my whole life, and he's generally just a smart person and went to college for computer science, as did I. But we just independently liked software engineering, and then we just picked it up as a hobby and carried on. No buff. To go. I'll be right back, guys. I'm gonna go quiet him down. Hopefully he stays quiet for a while. I have a stand-up desk, and I feel like Baron Harkonnen on his little glider every time I adjust it. Okay, so we've got level up, so they're not doing anything right now. And do I want to spawn a window for each now? Probably. Or no. Might bump this guy down a hair and then work on getting the health bar again, and then all the various icons going. Let's do the health. Let's bump that guy down. So we want him to be if anyone knows the difference between new line and spacing in GUI, let me know. Now we're going to be here. Actually, no, we should be down at that. I don't think new line is going to work with same line. So I'm going to instead do cursor pose. Cursor pose Y, and best way to do this. We want, is it local? So if I just do vertical padding, is that going to times? Let's try that. If I do a new line, that's going to put him down below the group, and I don't want that. Take this times 5 just to make sure we're pulling the right lever here. Okay, we are. So now when I do MGUI new line, that will put me down here, right below the group. And then I can, I close it? Sets. Oh, it's because it's not a screenshot, it's an image. But so if I do a new line after this group, that will put me right here, and I can do a larger version of my health bar. So let's grab the health bar code. Okay, this will require a little bit of thinking because we want it to be the player info. So when we click the eye icon, this view will change to whoever I've clicked the eye icon for. So that will become the focused player. So I want to have a local. I already have an array of the information, the stats for each of my players. So I just want to set the local or the focused player ID in my controller class so that I can use that to get the specific information for the focused player. In the controller. And the way that I'm separating this is I have the UI is injects a controller, and then it's primarily concerned with just UI concerns. So what am I going to draw and where am I going to draw it? And then the controller class serves up all of the what am I going to draws to the UI. So, and any kind of communication backwards happens from the controller too. So when we click the I button, we call focus player on the controller with the player ID of the selected player. So now what we want to do is cache that somewhere. So let's say focused player ID. Which was that? Player is what it's called, and we want to set. Okay, so we set the current operation. Then we also want to focus player ID equals. So this is the player ID of whichever player was clicked on. We already have a method. Oh, I love when things work out nicely. I already have a method to get the player info for the focus player. So then when I come into the UI here for the player data, I can say player info equals dot player info. Oh, but we need to get, we need a getter for the focus player. So focus player const set by value and ID focus player ID. So with these two methods combined, we can. I don't want to have to do this every frame. One of the tricky things about thinking about being in the game loop or in GUI specifically, all of this code gets called every frame, so you just have to be mindful about making sure things that only need to be called once are only called once. And with that being said, this is very light. The image cache fetch is really light. The multiplications I should probably do as a static const auto because they are fixed to the application lifetime. I'm guessing it's because it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Anurag, welcome to the stream. How are you? I would actually be more interested in my husband's streams than I am in mine because he is very, very good at C++. Can get much more done than I can in an hour. All right. So we're going to get the player info for the focus player. Let's get the progress bar. We're going to grab that same one from up here. So dot max health. We want this to be just make use of the button height ratio. So if the button is, we want it to be twice the button height. Actually, no, we want it, let's look at my mockup. What I'm deciding now is how big do I want this to be, and I want it to span more or less the width of this panel, so that actually is really easy. we just grab the player dimensions dot size dot x and then minus player horizontal padding. I have a 38, dude. Yeah, it's a rare oasis from having to code using an LLM. You know, one of my coworkers pointed out that using an LLM, like we use Claude at work primarily, but the amount of typing that you have to do now as a software engineer is really increased, and I'm definitely noticing that. Make GTA 7, yeah. Player dimension dot size dot x, and then minus padding ratio times size again. That's a little bit strange to type out, but have okay, so that's going to span the width of our player panel minus our padding, and then we want the size just to be let's do player button height ratio times half. I really do want to extract some of these things because that's I'm going to. Auto height ratio. So let's call that button size equals. I am back to I don't know how LLMs do with C++. I do VB.NET legacy desktop development at work. And so like think WinForms and 15 to 20-year-old technology. And LLMs seem to do pretty darn well. I think that WinForms is a solved problem, more or less, and every question that you could ask about WinForms has been asked on Stack Overflow as far as training data. Okay, so our button size. So then we only have to do the calculations once, and the static means application scope. So calculate it once and don't calculate it again every iteration of the method. I haven't tried Fable either. We had Fable for 2 days and then they pulled the plug, but we hadn't actually had it turned on yet because it's taken a while. But yeah, never got to try it out. Do you think it's worth the hype? Do you think it's a government risk? National security risk? I don't know. Okay, so now what we're doing here for our progress bar, we just want it to be the vertically, let's try half of the button size for now. Button size dot y times my begin group block. You don't need to be there. You can be here. If you guys are big ImGUI people, look into begin group and end group as an alternative to tables if you don't need a big table for something, because it makes my life a lot easier. I'm not a fan of the table and column syntax with ImGUI. I find it really confusing. Right, let's try that out. So we're going to take the max health divided by the player health for the player you have clicked. And unfortunately, there's no good way to test it. I'm gonna put the username in the player info as well so that we can see that it's shifting, because it should actually change now per player, but there's just no way to see that because the game hasn't actually decremented anybody's health yet. Ah, look at that. Nice little progress bar. Okay, then next we're moving on to, and I think unfortunately there's no way to tell, but it should theoretically be shifting. Okay, now let's move on to, status hooks are going to be a bummer. Where are you? Time to open up old Photoshop. You guys will get to see a little bit of my asset creation process. I'm really pleased with how that all ended up. The 38 dude says, "Saw your GitHub. You've made a gaming agent." Yes, we have. We have. All right, so we need to make. I'm gonna pull this off to my other monitor because we need to make just little placeholder icons for enemies killed, for your threads of fate count that you currently have active, your strength attribute, and then your strength tokens, or skill points, I should say, your agility attribute and skill points, and then intelligence attribute and skill points. So let's crack her open, and these should probably be 64. Seems about right. So I'm just going to make you this will be how many enemies have you killed? Going to export assets. So you guys get to see how we get assets from Photoshop into the game. So I make my PNG, and then I put it in the assets folder in raw textures, and then in the folder where it belongs. Then we're going to call this enemies icon. So then next we want to make threads of fate, which I want to make golden. Next we want to make strength. Let's do strength. Just leave it as simple strength. We'll put the other one as strength point. Did I use VS Code or Visual Studio? It's a good question because we are using MSVC as our compiler. Don't have. So I wish I had a better reason, but it boils down to, when you open up a text file and it's like a binary file or something, and you you're double clicking it by mistake, or like a JSON config. That's a really good example. And you go to double click it and it opens, but it doesn't open right away. It's set to auto open in Visual Studio, and then you have to wait for 2 to 3 minutes to see your JSON file. That got to be. And VS Code is a much faster load. It's very lightweight. You can configure it to have only the plugins and extensions you need. It has very good IntelliSense and everything you would ever need. The CMake and C++ plugins that you need are good. It's the other bias I have against Visual Studio is when you're first learning how a build system works. I don't even know what Visual Studio's build system is for C++, but can you integrate CMake into it? I don't even know. But the thing that I like about Visual Studio Code is it's just a lightweight view into your folder, and there's no glue anywhere else. There's no hidden config files. There's nothing nothing important hidden away. Everything that you need is right here, so you can very clearly see what you need. You don't have an option to switch into your solution view. It's lighter weight and it's much more intuitive in my opinion. But I know a lot of people do develop C++ in Visual Studio. Oh, okay. So yeah, I can show you gadgets. So when people say VS, they're referring to this. And let's see how long it takes to open. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah. Okay, that was pretty quick. But 16 seconds to open up your solution. This is the Steam's sample app example, by the way. So VS is Visual Studio, and VS Code is Visual Studio Code, which is this application, which is lighter weight. But I'm sure people will fill you in on their personal preferences of either or. And it is context dependent. I use Visual Studio proper for WinForms development. I've heard a lot of good things about Sea Lion. Oh yes, I was making my icons. Okay, so we have strength. Did I save you? I did. Okay, so then let's do the strength attribute. Let's do strength point. Let's call it S. P. I should call it. Really need to align on something. I'm gonna call it a token, actually, a strength token. That doesn't map very well. I'm gonna call it a strength point. Point icon. Then let's do agility next. Give a I ended up rasterizing you by accident. A P for agility point. I know a lot of people use GIMP because Photoshop is so expensive, but I simply can't. So I bite the bullet and I pay an astronomical amount for Photoshop. Wait, icon. Okay, no, let's do hint. When we get closer to prototype, it'll be easier to explain to you what I mean, but Anurag, I am kicking you. I've had enough of your trolling and negativity. Let's figure out how to do it. There. Anurag's been sassing me from day one. I figured out how to block him correctly, or her. I should not be sexist, him or her. Alrighty. But anyway, when I get a little bit more into the functional prototypes, so you can see the gameplay, I would like advice on how clear is to explain this concept that I have, but not going to talk about it now, but because it would be too complicated to explain, which is probably a red flag. But it involves, you can get ephemeral points for skill points, and they don't actually become your actual attribute point until you level up and spend that point towards a skill. But when I actually have a functional prototype, I'll pull you guys back in and ask your opinion. Intelligence, icon. Icon. Okay, what else do we need? We need for now. Nice. Okay, so now I've made all my icons, and then I come into our asset manifest. And this is looking at that folder that I just made all the icons in. And I dictate the source path and then what the asset will be named and what folder it will live in. So this, let's start, pull it up over here. Yeah, I know it sucks. I hate paying for Photoshop. It's very, very expensive. I do also use Substance Painter, but if you guys can scrape $150, which I think is what I paid for it, you can, because it used to be run by a company that wasn't predatory called Allegorithmic before Photoshop, Adobe bought Allegorithmic. But Allegorithmic had a lifetime license model for Substance Painter. So to honor that, Adobe is forced to sell lifetime memberships or lifetime one-time purchases for Substance Painter. The caveat, of course, being that you're pinned at whatever version you bought. So I bought it in 2023, I think. So I have 2023 Substance Painter, but it does everything I will need it to do. So I don't get new updates, which sucks. No, it's not free, unless you're talking about Vim. Once are you a Vim developer? I have so much respect for Vim developers. I am not a Vim developer. I am trying to eliminate my mouse as much as possible, but I'm still very much a mouse developer. All right, so we just need to then reference each of our buttons that we just made. Then the point icon, then copy both of these and rename them to intelligence icon. It's point icon. Right icon. Right icon. And then we need threads of fade icon. The top on. Okay, so now this is the manifest, and then we have a separate executable that will go and find these assets and then convert them into our asset format. And the way we do that is we run a command. Terminal. I'm gonna copy this one because my terminal is dead and I always forget the syntax for it. But terminal. Sweet. Saved my so we have a tool called ncconvert, and it's an executable that we wrote. And then we point it at our manifest and we'll go and find these and convert them all. So it built all of our textures for us and then put them in the NCA folder. And then we can call this, which is what I was mentioning before. This will take every one of our textures in the manifest or all of our assets in the manifest file and then generate the C++ for them. All right, so that was all we had to do for all of our new buttons. Well, actually, that's not quite true because we have to add them to our image cache. I don't have to. I'm just doing it to avoid. I don't have to add them to the image cache, that is, but I'm just doing it to avoid this call in the UI itself. Trying to obfuscate it a little bit. Okay, so we need icon and then icon and a utility point. Then we also need the top icon. Then don't want to have to type all of those again. So all I'm doing here is just the auto-generated C++ that is this here. Just like creates the texture view object and the path and everything that I need and loads the texture asset. So that's already been done. But I'm just calling that now, that loaded texture asset, and assigning it to an in-GUI texture to be able to access it. Intelligence point. I didn't copy intelligence here. So I didn't copy my comments. What is y'all's opinion on block style formatting? Call them whatever you call this. because we use it sparingly, but when you have a big block of code, I really think it makes it a lot easier to read. I've never seen that in any enterprise company I've ever worked at. People do this, and I'm sure it's for a reason, but it looks nice. It's icon. On icon. CR icon. All right. The asset importing is complete. You have seen it in like enterprise code bases? Gadgets, I think becoming a Vim developer would give you one. Oh no. Designator order, huh? Okay, I went intelligence, strength, agility. Oh. Gadgets, I think that if you were fluent in Vim, that would give you a leg up in the job market because that is a dying skill. And I would be very surprised if someone knew Vim. Our guys uses Vim at work, and it is very impressive. Cool thing about it is like, I think what they sell you, the dream they sell is that you never have to take your hand off of the keyboard and you can just like have all these keyboard bindings and just fly. Would be very cool. Okay, so let's start throwing our buttons in because we have them imported now. We have our progress bar, and then we're gonna go 2 or 3 in a row. So we're gonna make a group with 3. Although I might need to make a table now because we actually don't have one. Let's see how this works. You don't need the curlies around the group. I just find that it keeps the code a little bit more organized. This is just an empty block. So we want image. This is not a button. Oh, keyboard and lap was the dream, Monsi. Keyboard and lap is the absolute dream. And you're kind of inspiring me. I mean, shy of Vim, I could just learn like the Control Shift highlight stuff that would save me a lot of mouse scrolling. I'm almost only ever mouse scrolling to select shit, and I can just Control Shift highlight my way around the keyboard. I just haven't taken the afternoon to train my muscle memory to go do that. All right, GUI image. So I realized now that I forgot to import my skull. So I'm gonna do that quickly, but it won't take as long as it took for the others. Let's put him at the top. Oops, I made him first. Did I even save you? What did I call you? Enemies icon. That's what you are. Forgot about him. Icon. Okay. Then shall run the asset generator again. And code gen. And then all I have to do here is just throw him in the in the Sure. So let's start with him. So in our group, we're going to have our game cache dot enemies icon, and we want it to be button size divided by about 2. Let's try that. And then it's not going to be that big, so let's do another. Y times the top icon. Then we want the stripe icon, the utility icon, and then we want the intelligence icon. Then we want the third group. And we want the strength point. Let's see where that lands us. Yeah, Vim is absolutely a flex. Small blocks, yeah. Yeah, I agree. Hi, Yezdi. 15 want to learn C++. What's the easiest way? I would start the old-fashioned way. Follow the wisdom of the ancients and write hello world. So first pick, if you're Windows or Linux, pick a compiler. I would do MSVC for Windows, but that's based off of absolutely nothing. It's just easier in my mind than like, actually it's not. Pick a compiler, any compiler, and then pick an IDE, which will probably pick your compiler for you, and then endeavor to write hello world, and then learn about everything that hello world is doing. That'll take you a while. And don't copy and paste an existing hello world. You try to make your way through. A really good resource for learning C++ is another book recommendation. This one I actually recommend even harder than real-time rendering. Effective Modern C++ by Scott Myers. This guy right here. This is the book. I don't know if it's for complete C++ beginners actually, but if you're a C++ dev, you should read it. It's very helpful. Yeah, I've heard. Hi, Prince Lock you all. Welcome back to the stream. Yeah, we're actually a little Easter egg. I'll probably end up changing the name because one of my design principles is I want to not be silly at all in the game, and I really want to take the dark fantasy seriously. But Sir Scott Bot is in fact an homage to Scott Myers, and if we do keep him in here, he's gonna have the Scott Myers haircut because he really does. He has contributed a lot more than he will know to this endeavor. Hey, look at that! We've got buttons. Say pixel perfect representation. Look at that. Ship it. All right, so we have enemies, threads of fate. I'm never using tables in MGUI again. Who needs them when you have groups? This is flawless table alignment. So we have quickly enemies, threads of fate, strength, agility, int, strength points, agility points, int points. Okay, then we need. What am I? I need the numbers too. Yes, I do. Otherwise, these icons do not tell us any meaningful information. Okay, so then we want our groups are going to get a little more complicated. Can the begin group handle it? I think it can. So then we want to about the text, which will be the same thing here. So the player info. We have player info here. So player info dot enemies defeated count. Let's format it. Defeated count. Oops. Defeated quotes. Okay. So then we want threads of fate, which is not in my player info structure, so I have to add it. I have a type for that. A wig relic, yeah. I have not read either. I haven't read the C++ primer, 5th edition, or programming principles and practices using C++, but both of those would be better for beginners. You're absolutely right. We need threads of fate. Let's get ahead of ourselves a little bit because we are also going to need agility, and we almost just at this point we almost just need game state. Oh, but we have okay. Hey, we have the profile name, so let's get that in there because then we can test our player picking. So we want it at the very top, so we're actually going to get player info here, and then right after we fill the background, we are going to just player info dot profile name, and we want to make that string. So we want to font title font. So let's see if our I button really works. Is that all around Hubbard? Hey, it's working, you guys. See, this is the thing that you just can't get with LLMs, or maybe you can, but I haven't yet, is the satisfaction of clicking an I button and seeing your font or your text appear on the screen. This means that the player info object is the selected player, which is so fucking exciting. Look at that. Claridon, Smellerbee, Sir Scott, and L. Ron Hubbard. Oh, and look, we have our new round of enemy waves spawning. This is so exciting watching this come to life. And thank you guys for being on the journey with me. Now, next, we want to continue pumping all of the properties, and this is going to merit a discussion with myself on whether I want to pass game state. I'm going to call you Mura Tamir and tell me if I'm mispronouncing that. I'm sure I am. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so the question is, do I want to create an individual copy of the strength, agility, intelligence, threads of fate, which I just did, strength points, and all of the status effects into the player info struct? Or do I just want a reference to game state at this point? Because if you look, these are all player arrays, so they're already player indexed, and all I have to do is get the player stats, and I have. Yeah, that's unfortunately that's probably the move. So game state lives. Do I have it in my controller yet? No, I don't, but I can get it out of the instance manager for the game instance. So I think I am going to do that. Rather than duplicating all of this, I'll keep the player persona. Oh, I don't even need that, you guys, because it's in the game instance. I don't know why I was going down this road. Yeah, I mean, this has the player persona, which is the network ID, the profile name, and the username of the player. So I was naive here with my preemptive class making. So let's do this the right way. 86 changes. Oh, okay. Never, when you're merging changes, and remember to commit before you start working on a bunch of other stuff. And could I have just only committed the stage changes there? Yes. But I didn't. So here is the move. We're going to, I had made this temporary struct. Oops, temporary struct here that was going to be a wrapper on all the data I need, but I really need just all of the data. And I already have a handle to a type that can get me this, and then I have a handle for a type that can get me this, and what I'm going to do is get rid of that type entirely and change these a little bit to say get player persona, and what this is going to return is a player persona from, I'm not going to even have you anymore. I'm going to go to the, there's enough logic here now to merit putting this in the CPP. Bit of a refactor here. After. So this is just going to directly return the player persona for the given player, but just right out of the game instance, not from a local copy. We want to first assert that we all are already in a game before we try to call this. And then we want to return game instance dot game instance dot get player persona player ID, and then we'll just handle the profile name and the username outside of the stats, and that's cleaner anyway. Then we also need to get, let's look at game stakes. We're going to want to get the player stat. We're going to eventually need to get all of this stuff, but let's have one just for player stats. Yeah. I think because everything is player per player driven in this UI view, we're going to want to have to split out each of these, which are arrays with each element for per player here. We're going to want to create a method to get the stats for a given player and the cards for a player, and et cetera, et cetera. Because that's primarily how we're going to be interacting with game state in this view. So we're going to get the player stats. Okay, so catch it up a little bit. C keeps drifting from C++. I don't know. So mostly was recommending C to help learn with C++. I haven't written just straight C since college. Bolly Joseph says that C drifts from C++. And Marangubara says, yo, welcome to the stream, Marangubara. Is it you Unreal Engine or plain CPP? This is plain CPP. And then Muratamir says, probably working game dev project for my grad project in comp sci as it inspires me to watch people who code games. Yeah. Nice. One of the coolest experiences ever was doing the global game jam back pre-COVID times, where I hauled my desktop computer to a college campus, and I think it was a 2-night, 3-day game jam over the weekend, and we slept on the floor or on the tables, and the entire room reeked of body odor, myself included, because none of us showered, and we just coded until like 4 a.m. and lived off of Rockstar as a giant group, and that was one of the best experiences I've ever had. Okay, so we're gonna just make a whole bunch of these helper methods here. And this is gonna return the instance manager get game state, and then dot player stats dot add player ID. It's the only one I need for now, so that's the only one I'm gonna grab for now. No, you aren't. Here. What have I done? So I think it really varies on the game jam, but the global game jam that we did was, the rules were that if I'm remembering correctly, you could use assets that you had built before, but the idea, it was like a good faith competition, but the idea is you don't work on a game that you've already been working on before, and you can use any editor you want, any IDE you want, any Unreal or what a game engine you want. And the goal is to make a game in the 3 days, and they give you a theme that they unveil on the opening ceremony. And you try to form a team with strangers, or if you brought your friends, you can form a team with them. And you spend the first couple of hours planning out what the game will be, and then you divide up tasks. So, programmer, or artist, or music person, or game developer, like game manager. And then you just spend the next 3 days in a ferocious haze of coding as fast as you can. Yeah, it was super fun. I know. I'm feeling like an old crone these days because I generally go to bed pretty early. I don't think I could last if I tried to stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning and then woke up at 8 and rallied with the good old days. Okay, so loading the player info does not need to happen anymore because we do it on demand now. So get rid of you. This is actually much cleaner. Extract your game types, aren't you? Game state. So let's just wrap up any other lingering compiler errors that we have here, because the UI is going to call a bunch of these guys. So we don't need any of this initialization logic now, which is nice. If I can get away without having any do once pools in my UI layer, I'm doing great. And so far, so good. Next error. So user 9000 said, do you ever deal with template metaprogramming, concurrency, multi-threading, or manual memory management? Generally, no for the manual memory management. More so when we were working on the game engine, but not really in the game. If you want, my husband always gets fancy with and multi-threading. Also, no, we use the task graph, which does allow for multi-threading, but I don't do anything with I don't do any direct threading work here. And then template metaprogramming also, no, not typically. Generally, at the game layer, it's very, very simple C++. We certainly have dabbled in all of the above in the game engine, especially like in the renderer and such, but I mean, really now it's just creating buttons in ImGUI. I mean, some of the systems are a little bit more complicated, but like like some of those, I mean, even so, not really. It's pretty straightforward. We haven't had to get fancy at all. So I don't know how much of that we will get into here, if ever, in the game dev side of the house. Inevitably, we will get back into the engine and do some engine dev. And my husband usually finds a way to make something clever with some special type of template. So if you are more interested in, so I think I've explained this in other streams, but I am proficient at C++, meaning that I can do what I need to in C++, but my husband is good at C++. And so if you want to see what someone that's really good at C++ can do, watch him. But I'm absolutely much more of a generalist in that I can write C++ to code my game with minimal issues. But he's often like, when we post merge requests, he'll come by and be like, "Oh, did you know you could make use of this CPP26 function and make your day much easier?" But it's really a rare day when I make use of a template. I probably should be using them more. We have templates in the game, but not many. Cool. So I was updating. So now what we want to do, instead of getting the player info, we only need actually we need both. So we need the player persona. Also need the player stats. This is much cleaner how this ended up. So we want player persona dot profile image, and then we want the player persona dot username, and then we want the player persona or player stats dot south. Yeah, this is much easier. It will pay off dividends too as we start to add more and more properties. Oh, but not an MGUI texture ref aria. Yeah, so I do have to load. Do I not? I'm trying to remember how I did this in the main menu controller, because so do you return? Okay. Can we depend on Oh, but no, it's not even their profile picture though, it's their class picture. Keepers. I can tell my brain's starting to peter out. So let's just comment that out and finish cutting this over so it can build, and then I'll probably call it here for the night. So, okay, so stats. So I don't need to get, what I was thinking about there is I don't actually need to get the profile image from the player persona. That's their Steam user profile image. I need to get the class image of their chosen class. And I just named it confusingly in my helper class that I deleted. So then we want player stats dot health dot value, player stats dot. In stats, you are going to be in our third one we're going to return, which is player enemy waves. So let's add that quick. Because the victory points in this game will be how many of their 10 enemies have they defeated thus far. And the winner will be the first to defeat all 10. And the waves are going to be unique to each player. So, player stats. You guys ever read Flowers for Algernon about the little mouse that takes the brain enhancing drugs? Spoiler alert, but the this man that is like a reasonably simple-minded tells the story from his POV of writing journal entries, and it's a really, really good book. But they give that man, the scientists give the man the same brain enhancing drugs that they gave the mouse, and eventually you can see through the man's POV that he gets extremely smart and super intelligence. But then Algernon the mouse starts to recess and get brain damage from the brain enhancing chemicals, and then you realize through the man's writing that the same thing is happening to him. He just doesn't realize it yet. And I feel like that is where I'm at when it gets to be too late at night and I'm still trying to code. I just suddenly start coding a lot worse. Player states. And then what we want to get here is instance manager get game states dot player enemy waves player ID. Button up this here, and then we'll call it a night. The next stream will be in a couple days, and I'm going to still be trying to button up the UI here. And once we get all of the UI buttons in place and wired up to stubs, then we're going to be rapidly hooking them up into the backend, and then we will soon have a functional prototype, which I cannot wait for. Get player enemy waves. So this will just be waves dot cease waves dot size. Then we also want to get those same three things here. I'm sorry, Orangabara. I am generally pretty good with spoilers, but I should have given more than 3 seconds between when I said spoiler alert and when I started spoiling. I'll probably want to track when the focus player has changed, so I don't have to fetch this all every frame, but only when the focus player has changed. These things here. Okay, so we want player persona dot username, then we want player stats dot max health. This was gonna be waves dot waves dot size. Should be building again. Alright, catching up while I'm building. Hi, Anna Saeed. Welcome to the stream. Mika said you may need templates for networking in DB. Yeah, I don't even know that we have. Let's do a template search. Yeah, we really didn't. The string conversion is templated, but that's it. We've gotten away with it through the networking. So networking is done for the most part here. I'm not anti-template. I just I'm not all that great at using templates. and I generally tend to avoid them. But Cal is not afraid of templates, and looks like we just didn't have a use case for them in the game itself. We have a tremendous amount of them in the engine. But do we review each other's code to have arguments about it? We do review each other's code. Usually we don't argue about it because it's more like Cal will be like, hey, do it a completely different way, or have you suggested, or have you thought about doing it like this? And I usually say, oh, no, I haven't. And then he'll explain why it's a good way to do it. And then I do it. But yeah, we definitely talk about code and architecture all the time. And it's wonderful. And then Gal Rosenthal 3332 said, how often do you use AI for helping with design implementation? I almost want to say never, but I posted this in a YouTube comment, so I'm not asking AI how to design my game or like how do I do this or how do I do that or like copy and pasting code, but like I will let's say like what was my bug the other day? Let's see here. Let's see what it was. Steam. So let's say like I have a bug with the Steamworks API, for example. So I'm not going to say that I don't look at this because I'll look at this and be like, oh, is this helpful? And generally it is. So I'm not like an AI Luddite or anti-AI, but and I'll even like I'll chat GPT like chat GPT, what's the get friend persona name? But rarely. It's a last resort just because I do want to be as much of a purist as I can. But I'm not anti-AI. I'm not using AI for the coding. But I'm not going to extreme lengths to avoid AI. I'm just not actively using AI, if that makes any sense. That's really just because I enjoy doing things the old-fashioned way. It's not fun for me, and I'm sure I'm not conning AI is a really, really cool tool, but it's just less fun for me to like at work we are trying to be as agentic as possible, and I don't get the thrill that I get when I get like my little icons all in a row and I discover the MGUI begin group end group. And I'm in it for the dopamine. This wouldn't have been exciting at all. I would have called this AI slap if this is what AI had given me, but instead I'm incredibly proud of this. Yeah, I mean, I think I would be able to move much faster, but I just don't want to, is really where I'm at with all that. I'm proud of the fact that we got all the way through the engine without using AI, and I want to get all the way through this project without using AI. And I'm thinking now that I had commented about this or put this in a YouTube comment too, but I'm banking on the fact that by the time we actually get ready to sell this project, the amount of volume of indie games and just software in general that has been vibe coded will be so high that conversely the value of something written by hand will skyrocket. Because have you guys noticed, I think everyone has felt this way, like you can immediately tell when something on the internet has been AI generated. Images are much harder now, but I mean, like text wise, everyone's starting to talk like this. One word, the end, big news. And it makes my brain just shut off immediately. And I feel like that's going to very quickly, as the tooling gets better and better, translate into games much more than it is right now. And conversely, I think that will make something that's written by hand with all the wonderful giveaways that is written by hand, like my out of sync animation, will make them stand out even more. So kind of two-factor. I like doing it this way. I have a tremendous amount of pride doing it this way. And I get a huge dopamine rush by making little changes and an incredible dopamine rush by making big changes manually. And by the time I'm ready to ship this, there will be a sea of AI games out there and people aren't going to want them. All right, well, with that, we're building, so probably stream again. It's Wednesday today, probably stream again Friday night around the same time, 8:30 Central. And then I don't know, I'll be working on this again tomorrow morning and evening. So I might get a little bit farther. I'm hoping to wrap up the UI prototyping by the end of this week. Thank you very much, guys, for keeping me company. It's very fun chatting with all of you. And I will see you again very soon.